In this video, we'll be going over the derivation of the 5 Lagrange points in the circular restricted 3-body problem, which occur when the gradient of the pseudo-potential function omega is equal to 0. Well, we'll start with the collinear solutions where the y and z components of the position vector are equal to 0, from which we'll need a root solver to converge on the resulting x-coordinates of the L1, L2, and L3 Lagrange points. Then move on to the triangular solutions L4 and L5, where we linearize our two equations with two unknowns to be able to solve for the norm of the position vectors with a matrix vector method, which tells us that the solutions form an equilateral triangle with the two bodies, and then algebraically solving for the specific xy coordinates. We'll start with a definition of Lagrange points, which are special points in the CR3BP rotating reference frame that if a massless object is placed at those points with zero velocity, it will remain stationary with respect to the rotating frame. So in vector equation terms, this means that the position vector for all time is constant and equal to its initial value. Therefore, its first and second derivatives must also be equal to 0 at all times. And this means that the derivative of our state vector, which is position and velocity, must be 0 at all times. And since we asserted that the velocity will be equal to 0, this leaves us with only the partial derivatives of the pseudo-potential function omega. So it's our job to figure out what combinations of x, y, and z coordinates make the gradient equal to 0. And we'll be going through each axis one by one, starting with the most trivial z-axis. So we'll start with a partial derivative of the pseudo-potential with respect to z, which we must make equal to 0. So we can first factor out that negative rz from the expression, leaving us with two possible terms that could be equal to 0, where the first one, rz equals 0, is a valid solution. And next, if we look inside the parentheses, we notice that 1 minus mu is positive, the norm cubed of R13 is positive, mu is positive, and the norm cubed of R23 is positive, meaning that this entire expression has to be positive and therefore can never be equal to 0. So from this, we can conclude that the only way that the partial derivative of respect to z can be 0 if rz is 0, meaning that if any Lagrange points exist, they must be in the xy plane. Next up is a partial derivative of the pseudo-potential with respect to y, where again we can factor out ry from this expression and notice that there are two terms that can be equal to 0. And unlike for the z component, the term inside the parentheses here can be equal to 0, and those values correspond to the triangular Lagrange points, which is L4 and L5. But we'll be coming back to those later in this video. For now, we will first solve for the collinear solutions, which occur when ry is equal to 0. Now for the collinear solutions, we set ry and rz both equal to 0. We have the partial of the pseudo-potential with respect to rx, where in this case we cannot factor out an rx, but since ry and rz are both equal to 0, the denominators simplify, since if we recall, these are the r13 and r23 vectors, leaving us with this equation that we have to be very careful about since we're taking the square root of a square, and then we cancel out the position term in the numerator, which could potentially be eliminating some valid solutions. So we could technically just plot out this function in this form, which would yield 5 solutions for the expression to be equal to 0, only 3 of which are actually Lagrange points. So again, we could just do that, or we could be more rigorous about which roots of this expression correspond to which points, so we don't have to guess and check. In order to do that, we have to consider 4 scenarios that correspond to the position expressions being either positive or negative values. So we must consider when rx plus mu is positive or negative, and same with rx minus 1 plus mu is positive or negative. And we'll go over each of the 4 combinations one at a time. And this is going to determine if we switch the negative signs before simplifying the expression when canceling out the square and the square root and then eliminating the numerator position expression. And for these inequalities, we solve for rx to be more clear about what we're looking for. We start with rx greater than negative mu and rx greater than 1 minus mu, and it's easiest to see on a number line that these two expressions can only both be true if rx is greater than 1 minus mu, which corresponds to the L2 point. So we don't know what the value is yet, but we know that it must be on the right side of the smaller of the bodies. Next up, we evaluate rx greater than minus mu and rx less than 1 minus mu, which corresponds to a solution that will be in between the bodies, which is L1. And in this case, since rx minus 1 plus mu will be negative, we will switch this negative sign to a positive before simplifying the expression. Next is rx less than negative mu and rx greater than 1 minus mu, which is going to be an invalid solution since these conditions do not overlap, since there is no number that is both less than negative mu and greater than 1 minus mu. And finally, rx less than minus mu and less than 1 minus mu, which corresponds to a solution on the left side of the large body, which is L3. Now that we've gone through that process, we can plug in the simplified equations, noting the plus and minus signs to confirm that the solutions are where we thought they would be. And note that these values are solved for using a numerical root solver method that uses finite differences for derivative estimation and converges onto the solutions, which are the x-coordinates of the Lagrange points. And we can plug in those values to the pseudo-potential function omega to confirm that the roots do in fact correspond to an omega equals 0, or very close to 0 to the power of -15, -16, and -12. And we could continue iterating to get these numbers down even, or just the Lagrange point 3 to get that to even a smaller number. And we can also see that the invalid roots, those do not give back 0 for omega, although one of them is very close to L3. Now recall for that the whole process of the collinear solutions, we assumed Ry to be 0, and now we need to evaluate what happens when we assume non-zero Ry, which corresponds to making this expression inside the parentheses equal to 0. But now this is a multivariable problem since the norm of the position vectors are dependent on x and y, and this means that we have two unknowns Rx and Ry and two equations, which are the two partial derivatives equal to 0. So in order to solve, we can transform this system of equations to be a linear system of equations by doing some variable substitutions, by defining the variables alpha and beta to be equal to 1 over the norm cubed of the position vectors. And when we plug in our new variables, we get these two equations where our independent variables are alpha and beta, and then we can solve for those two using substitution, or in this case, we'll be using a matrix vector method. We can package up our two equations to be in the form of ax plus b equals 0 in order to solve for x, which will be alpha and beta, like so, where we have our coefficients of alpha and beta in the A matrix, the terms without alpha and beta as a B vector, and we use this matrix vector notation and solve for x, which equals to negative A inverse B, from which we can plug into Python to solve, which tells us that no matter what we plug in for Rx and mu, they cancel out, and we're left with that alpha and beta are both equal to 1, and it may not be obvious at the moment, but this actually tells us that the Lagrange points L4 and L5 form equilateral triangles with the two main bodies. Alpha equals beta equals 1 tells us that the norm of the R13 and R23 vectors are both equal to 1, and if we recall from when we non-dimensionalize the system, this means that they are both equal to the characteristic length L, which is a distance between the two main bodies. So this tells us that the Lagrange points are equidistant from each of the two bodies, thus forming these equilateral triangles. And now we're almost done. We just need to figure out what the x and y coordinates are given this constraint of the norm, which just takes some algebra, where we now have two equations that the norm of R13 and R23 vectors are equal to 1, which gives us these expressions since Rz is equal to 0. And here we have two equations and two unknowns, which we'll solve for by setting them equal to each other since they both equal to 1. And when we set the equations equal to each other, the ry squared terms will cancel out, leaving us with just the position x squared terms. Expanding those terms gives us this equation where we can see that everything on the left side cancels out with a term on the right, rx squared, 2 mu rx, and mu squared, leaving us with this equation where we can easily solve for x, giving us that the x coordinate for the Lagrange points of L4 and L5 is equal to 1 minus mu. And all we have to do now is plug in this result back to one of the equations. We'll pick Rx plus mu1 for simplicity, where we can solve for our y, giving us the two solutions of plus or minus square root of 3 over 2, and we're done. L4 is the positive 3 over 2, and L5 is negative root 3 over 2, and we have now solved for all 5 Lagrange points. Just because Lagrange points exist doesn't mean that they are stable places for spacecraft to be, where in fact only L4 and L5 are stable, which we'll be proving in this series using eigenvalues and eigenvectors. And we can see the stability characteristics of the plot on the bottom right, which all have initial states of the 5 Lagrange points with a small nudge in their x position, and these are the resulting trajectories. And from that analysis, we'll also be able to figure out why there are asteroids stuck in the Sun-Jupiter L4 and L5 points, which are the targets for the Lucy mission, and why, even though L2 is not a stable point, the James Webb Space Telescope can be in a stable halo orbit around it. And in the next video, we'll be going over the pseudo-potential plotting function and the pseudo-potential plot and understand intuitively what it means before getting into the stability analysis. So let me know if you have any questions or comments. And again, I'll say in every video, I highly recommend you go through this derivation by hand and just use this video as a guide because you're going to understand the problem a lot better.